On today's show, James Bond is back. Daniel Craig is going to be doing it. Who's directing him? We also have Melissa McCarthy news and Black Panther, not just the king of Wakanda, he's the king of the world. Movie Talk starts right now.
I'm the king of the world.
You guys buy that? Did it feel like I got into character as Jack there?
No,
I loved that.
Good call out.
Do not
That was
actually
excellent,
try
actually.
that on a cruise ship, kids. It's very, very dangerous. That is Markeia McCarty. That is Jon Schnepp. They're both here. Hey, they're on Heroes a lot. And I'm Mark Ellis with an all-new edition of Movie Talk. Here today, we have a whole lot of stories to get into, not just the ones I already mentioned, but we also have some heartbreaking news about the legal struggles for the estate of Stan Lee. We're going to be getting into all of that article from The Hollywood Reporter a little bit later on in the show, but we do kick off with the news that Daniel Craig has confirmed he's coming back and that James Bond is his next project. That would be the 25th film in the Bond franchise. Daniel Craig was interviewed recently saying that he is making that his next film. The question that we have here in Movie Talk is, who's directing it? Danny Boyle is set to be in the director's chair. We think that's where the rumors are pointing. That's what a lot of people are speculating. But when Daniel Craig was asked point blank about it, he remained tight-lipped and said, we'll see. We'll see. So is Danny Boyle going to be directing this movie? Because as much as Daniel Craig may or may not want to play James Bond, I think something that would help him want to play James Bond and actually commit to the role like he did in Skyfall, like he didn't do Inspector, is having a director that he actually cares to work with. Danny Boyle, is he that guy? It seems like he would be Jon Schnepp. Or do you have somebody else in mind do you think Daniel Craig wants?
I would love to see Danny Boyle, say it officially. I mean, I think him and his writing partner are writing the Bond movie right now, and nothing is like official, but it's pretty much a done deal. That's as far as the way I look at it. I kind of was like a little bummed to hear that Daniel Craig was still going to play Bond, especially after Spectre and him crying about it. Like, I was like, all right, I guess we're going to do one more. He's selling his Aston Martin, so you could already see he's like getting rid of some of the Bond properties while he still can before he does his last Bond. But if it has to end with him, I think ending it with Danny Boyle directing it is a great high note. I could see that as being a great film.
Yeah, this interview that we're talking about was actually at a Opportunity Network charity auction that did include Daniel Craig auctioning off his 2014 Aston Martin. Markeia, do you read that as some sort of a metaphor of Daniel Craig saying, hey, I don't want anything to do with this character ever again? Or do you think it's just a nice thing to do for charity and he actually is excited to work with a director that may or may not be Danny Boyle?
Okay, so this is the same guy that said I'd rather slash my own wrists than do another Bond film, but I'll do it if the money's right. So he's coming 14 years out of being Bond. I mean, he's beat Roger Moore at this point. And dude is done. He's done. As far as he's concerned, he got his money and he's selling memorabilia. The relationship is over. So why would he keep the Aston Martin kind of a thing? So, I mean, with this, I think because he's done, I don't think it has anything to do with Danny Boyle or any like bad blood or anything there. I think he would say the same thing if it was any director that was attached to it.
You don't think there's a director that could come in and kind of inspire him to want to be, well, I didn't think about that take on James Bond? Because the cool thing about Casino Royale, when we first met Daniel Craig, is that this was not your daddy's James Bond. This was a totally different look on it. So is there a director that could come in that may or may not be Danny Boyle that could inspire Daniel Craig? Or do you just think it doesn't matter who's behind the camera? He doesn't care about being in front of the camera?
Well, I can't speak for Daniel Craig, but I know for me, I would like for Joe Wright to actually be a director that could be considered for this, that they should have him on. I really enjoyed what he did with Hannah and with Darkest Hour. I think it could bring us back to that Casino Royale place. That was my favorite for Daniel Craig, definitely, and I guess next up would be Skyfall, if I had to choose a second after Casino Royale. So, yeah, I mean, because then you have that. Joe Wright would be able to do that brokenness, but then also that like frenetic action. I mean, going back to Hannah, just go ahead and put Daniel Craig in something like that, and let's have it be that stark, put a little bit of abstract with it, make it vital again.
I would argue we might get a Pan or a
Stop.
Anna Karenina from Joe Wright.
I knew
I'm going to have to chuck in Christopher Nolan or Quentin Tarantino. Both of those directors have said they want to play in the James Bond toy box. That would, I mean, I would like them to play in the James Bond toy box after Daniel Craig is done. I think getting someone like Danny Boyle who could take this on and do a good job with the adaptation. I mean, Joe Wright might do a good job too.
Yeah, I think Christopher Nolan would do an amazing job.
I just kind of feel like the odd number of Bond films are the ones that are good. The even ones have sucked so far for Daniel Craig. So at least this is an odd number going out, and it should be
So
good.
it's like
Number
the Star
5.
Trek curse
Yes.
then.
I mean, I look at a director because everybody loved Casino Royale so much because it felt like a Jason Bourne movie. It felt like Jason Bourne met James Bond. So could you consider somebody who's actually done a Bourne movie, like a Paul Greengrass or a Doug Liman, maybe Tony Gilroy, somebody like that to come in there? But Danny Boyle, if you watch 127 Hours, I think that's the movie that you point to and you say, look at what this guy can do with a premise like that, because 127 Hours is basically a guy who gets stuck next to a rock for days, and he managed to make that such a kinetic, energetic feeling film that if you can do that with James Bond, that should be something to get. It's going to get Daniel Craig hopefully excited to do it. I mean, look, he's showing up. We know this is the last run at Bond. What do you expect to see in this movie as far as signaling that this is his last film? Do you think there's going to be some huge thing that happens in the third act that says, oh, this is the end of Bond? Or do you think it's just going to be another Bond adventure and then we're going to have somebody else playing him next movie?
Well, they could have it be kind of like a tone change, with a Me Too and Time's Up type of a thing. Danny Boyle would be a good addition to that because, like with John saying and what you're saying, he's a very visual director, and then he has John Hodge back on it. So those two train spotting guys, I mean, this could be, if you go with that tonal change, then that could be a phasing out of an old Bond into a new Bond, so that's a possibility.
I like that idea, but I'd like to see Bond stay as Bond, but just be like man out of time, like stuck, his misogynist ways, but like in this new world,
like Austin Powers.
Yeah, literally, I feel like it's
like
it's
that.
come true. It's not even a joke anymore. James Bond is Austin Powers, so I mean, it could be a good way to signal the out for the old James Bond, so that when a new director comes on, they can refresh the franchise in a brand new way. Just like Daniel Craig did, 15 years ago in Casino Royale. That was a reboot. That was a brand new Bond. And they just took them too long. They only did 5 movies in 15 years. They're like, yo, you got to do a Bond movie every 2 years to make it work, I think, personally.
Yeah, well, he was busy with, Cowboys versus Aliens.
And Cowboys and MGM. Oh, he was also in that amazing film, Invasion. Anyway, so it's like, yeah.
That's going way back.
I know, hitting that way back button.
Well, look, I don't know where this movie is going to be shooting. I imagine a lot of it takes place in Great Britain. But if you're looking for a fun landscape, something you can get a good tax credit to shoot in, may I recommend Los Angeles, California, Hollywood, kids.
Yes.
The pictures are coming back thanks to the Film and TV Tax Credit Program as part of the California Film Commission Board. They've announced that up to 9 upcoming films are going to be shooting here in Los Angeles or the surrounding area of Southern California. Those films include the Deadwood movie. That's good news that the Deadwood movie is actually happening. You also have pictures like Coming to America 2 and the Scarface reboot, not to mention the Ford versus Ferrari movie that I think is going to be awesome. I might be the only one on the panel that's looking forward to it. But as far as this story goes, I think the big tale is that way back in 2014, in the dark ages, Governor Jerry Brown approved revisions to the Film Commission's tax credit program because there were so many movie projects that were being shot on location somewhere else. Canada's famous for its tax breaks. Atlanta was a popular location for all the Marvel movies as well as other places because Atlanta and Georgia has everything that you would need to shoot a movie. You have cityscapes with downtown Atlanta. You can also just go into the wilderness, and a lot of Marvel movies took advantage of that. However, Captain Marvel is shooting primarily here in Southern California. Now, that may be due to the militaristic nature that they have a lot of sets around here that they could go to, but it also means that California is making a play to once again be the epicenter, not just of the glitz and glamour of movies, but also where you make movies. Markeia, do you see this as being a huge shift change in how movies are made and where movies are made?
Yes, definitely. I'm glad that California is not leaving money on the table anymore. We basically force these major companies out because we're like, oh, no, you're not getting a tax break here, but you're going to shoot here because it's Los Angeles. Very high and mighty of us. I'm glad that we're turning that back around because I know personally as an actor, and I have a lot of actor friends, and then it's not just actors, it's the costs and the expenditures that they spend here, like above and below costs. That makes a big difference. And why are we just letting other people have that, other states. I mean, hey, nothing against Georgia, but it's like, wouldn't you rather not have to deal with humidity and everything else and shipping everything out and just have it here in California? I'm very glad that Coming to America 2 is happening here, and I actually agree with them having it in California since the former one was in New York.
Yeah, thanks for the note on Coming to America too. And by the way, it's like this is interesting news for Southern California, Schnepp, but it's just good news to hear that these movies are being made. I mean, this is kind of breaking news for me anyway, reminding everybody that Coming to America 2 is a project that's happening, is that Deadwood is the movie is a project that's happening, and that Scarface is still in the works, if not officially having everybody on board yet.
Right. I mean, with Scarface, they're transplanting it now from Miami to L.A. Hollywood, ladies and gentlemen. Hollywood, California should actually be the center of filmmaking, and it's not. It's constantly like people are like off in Toronto pretending it's L.A. I mean, I'm so sick of hearing about things pretending to be L.A. and not shooting in L.A. It's about time, California. I'm glad to hear that these incentives incentivize everybody. Everybody here is a filmmaker or actor or director. Mm-hmm. They can't get a break because it's so tough to make a film in Hollywood. I'm glad that that's finally ending. I'm sick of even talking about it.
The new system allows projects that were previously barred from credit by the old program to be eligible, and this includes TV pilots, hour-long TV series, and feature films with budgets of $75 million or more primarily. So those are the ones that get the biggest tax breaks. Some other movies included in this 9 films that they announced are the upcoming Bumblebee spinoff of the Transformers franchise and Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Does this do anything as far as you just being a movie fan? Do movie fans actually care where a movie is made? Should they care where a movie is made? Like, does it matter to them that it's authentic or not, or do they just want to see a good movie at the end of the day?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting question. I mean, does it matter? I think it does. Do people care, yes or no? Not really. I mean, I think most people, when they watch TV shows and you see like a Vancouver background, they wouldn't know that it's not New York because it's like a super close up and it's a corner and they just put a bagel shop there. It's, you know, instead of, it's like, look, it feels like that's New York. Fine. I mean, that's artifice is half of Hollywood. Most things are shot on a green screen now anyway, so nothing is real. So certainly, I mean, but the idea of working and living in California, in Hollywood, and making films here, that thing, I'm glad that that's coming back in a bigger way, and it should be there.
I think it kind of depends on the property because when the actual location or the place itself becomes an actual like kind of character in the property, like for instance, True Detective, I want that to happen in New Orleans because it needs to. That's that flavor, that's that visceral feel. While when you have something like The Walking Dead, that doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, in Georgia or anything like that. Or if you have something that's set in New York, like for instance, just Luke Cage, I needed for that to be set in New York. I needed the Defenders to be set in New York. Why? Because it's like there's a certain feel that you have for things. And when you need it that way, then yes, I want for them to happen in the location. But like what Jon was saying, if it's not happening in Toronto and you need that Toronto feel, let's just keep it here and let's get my friends work. Let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of visiting. The cops and I went to the Walking Dead set last year. That it's like it's on the outskirts. It's not Atlanta at all. It's Georgia, but it's like the wilderness, kind of more of the country. But the economy in that town shot up by hundreds and probably thousands of percentages just because The Walking Dead was there. So now it's kind of like a mini Disneyland. Like tourists come in by the busload just to see the sets from The Walking Dead. So it totally turned that town around. So it's interesting. So I like stories like that. So I don't need every project that comes in. I don't want every project to be shot here in Hollywood, because I want to be able to get from Burbank to Beverly Hills in less than 2 hours. And I also I like the authentic feel of when you go on location somewhere. I myself, when I travel for stand-up, I love going on the road. I love staying in hotels. I know that might put me in the minority where most people would just rather be at home, but I want places to offer film tax credits everywhere. I love that Canada does it. I love that Atlanta does it. It's nice that they do it here in Hollywood, if for no other reason, just because it makes sense. It's stupid not to. And Hollywood saw the writing on the wall. Like Markeia said, it's not the old guard anymore. It's not, oh, well, you know, we're Hollywood, so of course they're going to want to shoot here. Not if it costs them millions and millions of dollars more. Studios got smart to it, and now Hollywood has responded. So you're going to see more projects coming out of Hollywood and filmed right here in Hollywood, California. I say right here. We're in Burbank. We're close enough. It's the valley here. It's all the same to you guys. We're going to move on to our next story, and that is one that could break some hearts. That is Stan Lee, who's 95 years old, is currently embroiled in a number of legal battles, some of which are even at the hands of his daughter, JC. And this is a tug of war for his estate, for his properties, for his money. The story came out in the Hollywood Reporter in graphic detail about a lot of the things that he's going through, both from a personal standpoint and a public standpoint, and what's going down with his estate and all the various deals that he has. The broad strokes are that Stan Lee and his wife Joni were together for, I think, over 60 years at least. They were both well into their 90s and in good health, but when Joni passed away last July, it sent Stan Lee into a state of disarray as far as his affairs go, because if you have legal matters that Joni was primarily handling, then all of a sudden she passes away, that's when the vultures come in. You see it a lot of times in Hollywood, particularly with somebody at the advanced age of Stan Lee. People come in, since her death, lawyers have been shuffled around, a lot of longtime trusted assistants have been pushed out of Stan Lee's life, and new people have been forced in. And a lot of this, insinuated by the Hollywood Reporter article, is at the hands of his daughter and his daughter's new friends, who come in and probably want a piece of his estates to some degree. Now, I'm not levying these charges. The Hollywood Reporter is. And if any of these are to be believed, then it's sickening what happens to somebody who is Stan Lee, who we all have come to know and love for what he's done in the world of comic book movies, and certainly being the legitimate face of getting the MCU off the ground. He appears in every movie. We love seeing him. And to see the treatment of him by the people around him, and particularly his daughter, it's not only sickening, Schnepp, it's kind of heartbreaking to see this happen to somebody. Were you able to catch up on the Hollywood Reporter, and what is your take on all this?
Yeah, it's pretty sickening. I mean, this has been going on for months. I mean, the Hollywood Reporter is just kind of like encapsulating some of the newer updates. But I mean, we started hearing about this several months ago, like about 4 or 5 months ago. Different reports were coming out, like, someone bought a condo right next to his house, and no one knew whose it was. Some bodyguard was like forcibly removed because he was causing trouble. All these different people are coming in, like you said, kind of circling Stan Lee in a not a supportive way, but in a kind of a what can I get out of this guy kind of way. And it hurts. Like, I grew up reading Stan Lee. I probably read more Stan Lee books than any other author who I could list off who's written books. I've read probably more comic books than books, and so many of them in my formative youth were written by Stan Lee. So it hurts to see that someone, especially who's 95 years old, who has given so much to our medium, not just comic books or entertainment or television or movies, but just been an overall cool guy to deal with. I mean, there's back and forth as far as like the comic book biz and different things that have gone on, but he has been the face of Marvel through thick and thin, through their bankruptcy, through, he's always been that guy on the soapbox saying Excelsior, and no one's there to have his back. It was nice to see Kevin Smith tweet out, I think it was this morning or yesterday, where he's like, hey, Stan, you could come live with me. All of us care about you, and we're concerned about this. And a lot of people, I mean, months ago when this started, we talked about it on Heroes a couple months back. We're like, hey, we hope that someone comes to Stan Lee's defense and helps him out in this situation, because that's what he's in. He's in a situation, and it's really hard. Like, you'll see a video, if you go online, you could see a video that was shot just this weekend at a Comic-Con where he's just like signing autograph after autograph. And I was told that, he wasn't given enough breaks. He was given no breaks. There were just thousands of people in line, and people are just saying his name. His handlers are saying Stan Lee, like, as he signs his name, like he's forgetting to even sign his name. It's not a fun thing to see. It's not something that you want to see. But I'm glad someone videotaped it, because it just gives you a behind-the-scenes look at what's going on, even a fraction of what's going on. It's not cool. I wouldn't go and say I wouldn't blame the daughter 100%. I would blame all the parties involved or handling it horribly, because if they handled it right, we would not be talking about this. This is the kind of thing where it's like someone has to step in and handle it now. I mean, even down to the fact that like Stan Lee's Comic-Con LA is not even called that anymore. That's gone. It's called something else, Beyond Fest. It's like people are leaving the POW universe in droves, and it's because of the mishandling not by Stan Lee, but the people who are his handlers.
There were even things at the POW offices that are mentioned in the article that there was some merchandise taken from there. Nobody knows what's exactly going on with that. And you don't have to blame the daughter, JC, 100%. But look, you say daughter, and when I hear the term daughter, I think of like a 6-year-old. I don't think of a 67-year-old who should have some sort of ability to at least take care of her father first and foremost over talking to all these other people and dealing with all this stuff. Joni didn't seem to have a problem to do it for the better part of 60 years. So why can't JC get her act together? A lot of it is because this is why I don't want to have kids, Markeia. It's because I like pets. You know why? Because pets don't do this kind of crap. You feed pets twice a day, and that's all they ask about. The one argument that I always get in with my friends as to why I should want to procreate at all is that when you get really old, kids will take care of you. Your kids are supposed to take care of you. It does not appear to be happening in this case.
Yeah, well, that's a myth that the kids will take care of you. But, it's also a myth that parents are infallible. They're just people too. Kids are just people too. It's just this entire situation is so ugly and so tragically relatable because once money is involved with an older person in a family, you see this everywhere. I've seen it in my family. I've seen it in my friend's family. And it is the reason why it's so heartbreaking is because, yes, Stan Lee is like America's grandpa. Grew up reading his gorgeous ideas on page, and thank you for Black Panther, Stan Lee. But with this, and it's like feeling powerless to do anything with it. If it was your own family, then you could call them out, or you can be like what Kevin Smith did and be like, you know what, Stan, just come stay with me and we'll take care of this and have this straightened out for you, kind of a thing. It's like we can't do that. We're basically on the sidelines having to watch something that we can have no hand in.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to do. I mean, is there anything that, because the MCU, he's meant so much to the MCU, what can the MCU possibly do? Is it just something as arbitrary as extending an olive branch and saying, hey, you can come stay with me, you can come live with me? Like, is there anything else in your mind that you can do other than establish some sort of like conservatorship? A lot like what happened with Mickey Rooney. And I think the article mentioned this too, because Mickey Rooney went through similar things towards the end of his life with elder abuse. That was physical too. And there's some charges of physical abuse that went on against Stan Lee, even at the hand of his own daughter, that are alleged in the article. What can be done?
Well, obviously with Avengers Infinity War coming out in literally 2.5 weeks, I mean, I would love it to see Marvel Studios or Disney proper, get involved. And, maybe even to the point of like, hey, we're going to do some of our own research. We're going to have our own team look into this and maybe see if they can help in some way, shape, or form. I mean, it's great that Kevin Smith offered that for Stan Lee to live with. I've been to Kevin Smith's house. It's awesome. So I'd be like, hey, anybody who gets an offer like that, you should be like, snatch that up, Lee. But I don't even know if Stan Lee is on social media. If he's like, we don't know what the situation is. So it'd be great for someone with a little bit more clout, like Disney and Marvel Studios, to get involved. Even like someone like Kevin Feige to be like, I'm concerned about Stan Lee. I'm sure Stan Lee will be at the premiere of the Avengers Infinity War. I mean, wouldn't it be great to not have those issues and those thoughts in your mind while you're thinking about something, while you're watching all of these characters that he helped co-create? I mean, I think that would be really important to kind of like nip this in the bud. It's already gone on too far.
Yeah, you know what I want? I want one of those aides, that have been pushed out of his life to air everything so we can shame the offenders of whoever it is in this situation. And then we have a better grasp of things where it can then be kind of a public outcry. I mean, shame does a lot for people.
Yeah. It seems like such a tough legal thing to do because, again, if you're 95 and you have all these documents being pushed in front of you, even by somebody who's in your own family, and you sign them and maybe you sign it and then you want to go back on it 2 days later, it's a very hard thing to navigate. So when somebody as trusted as your wife is no longer there to help protect you against these kind of things, you see it time and time again, and I hope that the publicity that a story like this gets helps stop it and not continue it, even if it is somebody in your own family who may be one of the primary vultures. Well, in the MCU, currently, there's a whole lot of money being made, some of which is going to Stan Lee, and a whole lot is being spent by fans of Black Panther. They're going to see the movie again and again and again, to the point where now Black Panther has passed Titanic as the third highest grossing North American movie of all time. Its domestic haul is currently at $666,272,000, and that trails only the Force Awakens at number 1 and Avatar at number 2 for the all-time spot. It passed Titanic, and Titanic is one of these movies that a lot of people saw, and then there was word of mouth, and then everybody's mom and grandma and grandpa wanted to go see it. And then I know people in my life, Justine Marino, a great comic, is one of them. She's seen the movie 20 times. She counts every time she goes to see the movie. So my question to you two is, Black Panther has a similar kind of feel where people want to go see it again. Markeia, do you think it's more people seeing it and giving it repeat business, or do you think it's more word of mouth spreading to people who normally would not be interested in comic book movies?
Oh, a little column A, a little of column B, definitely. Because I know a number of people, myself included, that are have repeatedly seen this movie and get something different out of each viewing. And then because we're so passionate about it, we talk to other people about it, and they're like, "Wait, what? A comic book movie? All right, I guess I'll go see it. Oh my God, it was amazing!" kind of a thing. So it's like, yeah, I mean, and with Black Panther, yeah, it's a landmark event. It's like one of those event moments. It's almost a cultural moment at this point, if not already reaching that, like Force Awakens was, like Avatar was. And something to keep in mind with Black Panther, it's done the number 3 spot in a little less than 2 months. Titanic was in theaters for almost a year, like about 6 months at least, depending on what parts of the country that you're in. And then it keeps on coming back.
And it's had the benefit
it keeps on coming back.
Right.
It's like, all right, here's our anniversary. Oh, here's special Christmas edition and whatnot, which Black Panther also can do. I definitely see this overtaking Avatar. I mean, it's only, 80 million more, and it comes out in Blu-ray, digital on the 5th, May 5th, and then Blu-ray on the 18th. Yeah. I don't see any reason, because of word of mouth and because of repeat business, it's going to do that.
Yeah, Schnepp, do you think it possibly, just as far as a box office gross standpoint, that it could pass something like Avatar or even get close to The Force Awakens?
It could definitely pass Avatar. I don't see it getting close to The Force Awakens, but
if for no other reason, because the summer's right around the corner too, and there's so many more movies that are comic book related. I mean, I think Avengers: Infinity War might be the only threat to Black Panther's box office receipts.
Yeah, and remember, we're talking about adjusted gross. I mean, like adjusted gross with Titanic 20 years ago is a lot different than what movies cost now, $15 to $24 versus $7 to $5. So, I mean, in adjusted gross terms, a lot of other movies would be in the top 3 or 4 or 5.
Gone with the Wind is like always number 1. I think it's Gone with the Wind or Star Wars.
Yeah, Gone with the Wind. Like every single person on the planet Earth where a cinema was watching Gone with the Wind.
You could see it for a buffalo nickel.
That's right. There's some cartoons that play beforehand. They're silent though, kids. You're gonna have to think about music.
Yeah, I think Black Panther is. It feels like it possibly could beat Titanic. But I'm looking for that 4-hour cut. The one that we keep getting talked about.
Yes.
Like the double dip is coming. Like the Blu-ray is going to come out. It's going to have a bunch of cool stuff. I looked at all the features on the Blu-ray. I was like, all right, that's good. They got a couple of deleted scenes, not an hour and a half of deleted scenes, but a couple of them. So I feel like Marvel's not stupid. They're like, look, we'll put this Blu-ray out. Everyone will buy that Blu-ray. Next year, the super sweaties will buy the 4-hour version. That will get that. So that's a money making machine. Black Panther Part 2, the sequel, also known as Infinity War, is like that's coming out in literally 2.5 weeks. So we get to go back to Wakanda. We get to go back and hang out with all the characters that we enjoyed meeting for many people for the first time like a few months ago. Literally, I can't really recall any other film that's done a 1-2 punch like that, where they're like, oh, by the way, here's this film. Oh, what happened? Oh, it's the #1 film ever. It's breaking all kinds of cultural phenomena. It's showing in Saudi Arabia for the first time in 35 years that men and women are going to be allowed to seat side by side inside a movie theater. What are they going to be watching? Black Panther. That's called breaking new ground. I mean, I feel like that's what this film has done better than any other film. Not even superhero films, just any other film, literally, culturally, it's been able to cross that barrier. We talked a little bit about that as far as like how it's both it's American and yet it's global. Like its perspective is definitely looking in at America from a global perspective, and that's why I think it's having this kind of like larger than America response, because it's not strictly an American film. Wakanda is obviously not even in America. So Anyway, I think it should eventually beat Avatar, but I think Infinity War is like the one that's outselling. I think it's outsold 7 of the other pre-sale movies from Marvel as of this morning. It's beaten all of them. It's like just eating $250 million box office. We haven't even talked. It's going to probably make 250, and the biggest box office ever. Every theater is probably going to be playing it. In the multiplex, it's just like, what else is playing? Nothing. It's just all.
It's just going to be Infinity War, but I bet there's a couple screenings that hold on to Black Panther because you might see Infinity War and then want to go back and see Black Panther.
I'm seeing Black Panther. My goal.
Black Panther first and then Infinity War, because then you're like, okay, he's alive in Infinity War.
All right, so currently, as far as the non-adjusted for inflation goes, all the movies that are in the top 10 of all time have been released in the last decade, with the exception of Titanic. But if you adjust for inflation, the numbers get a whole lot different. Like we postulated, Gone with the Wind is still number 1. Avatar is number 2. Star Wars is number 3. Titanic is number 4. The Sound of Music is number 5. E.T. 6. The Ten Commandments 7. Dr. Zhivago. I guess a lot of people went to go see Dr. Zhivago.
Dr. Zhivago was such a thing in the 70s, Wow. Hey, is it the original Star Wars or The Force Awakens that you mentioned?
The original Star Wars.
Okay.
Yeah. And then rounding out the top 10 is Jaws and Snow and the Seven Dwarfs. But I know Jaws is not trailing far behind. Not Jaws, The Exorcist is not trailing far behind either. The Exorcist, when you adjust that for inflation, I think it's top 20. So just remember, kids, people went to go see movies before they cost $20 a ticket.
Right.
Just a fun fact for you. Well, something you may or may not want to pay $20 a ticket for is another Melissa McCarthy / Ben Falcone project. Melissa McCarthy and Ben Falcone, of course, they're married. They also work together quite frequently. Melissa McCarthy being the star of the movie and Ben Falcone writing and directing the movie. That is going to be the case with Super Intelligent, a new movie that has just been greenlit. And this comes on the heels of Life of the Party, which is also directed by Ben Falcone and starring Melissa McCarthy, that comes out this August. So if you have Falcone and McCarthy, they team up together, which is great. I'm glad that they enjoy working together. However, the properties they've made together, in my opinion, don't hold up to the other Melissa McCarthy movies. If you put Bridesmaids and The Heat up against, and Spy up against things like Tammy and The Boss, I just don't think that works out as well. This new premise is Melissa McCarthy is somewhat of a high-level executive, and she gets chosen to be monitored by a super intelligence, and then things go awry. So this seems like right in her wheelhouse. As far as Ben Falcone being the one that is directing her, how do you feel about that, Markeia?
Well, I enjoyed Tammy when it came out, but I enjoyed it in a different way. It was, at home, seeing it on my small screen as opposed to having to spend $20 for the ticket. So because of that, I think I enjoyed it more and didn't feel like I paid too much.
And it was a different kind of movie than I think it was being sold as, because I think it was just being sold as another crazy Melissa McCarthy comedy. And there was a lot more drama and heart in there than you would have expected. I still didn't like the movie, but I think that it was being sold as one thing and ended up being something else.
Yeah, it was a bit wrenching and a little bit dark, and I actually really respond to that. But I saw that on HBO, while I was at home. And with the two of them, I think they just make a different kind of film, and I don't necessarily feel like that is a theater film. I would love if it was a Netflix original kind of a thing, and I would probably, repeat a couple, viewings with that. But as far as having it be in theaters, I'm not so on board with it. I would love for them to explore more of a digital option with upcoming properties. But who knows? Maybe Super Intelligence is going to be like Spy, but more intimate and fun. I don't know. I really enjoyed Spy. I can't see them doing something better than that.
Yeah, and Super Intelligent is actually going to be written by Steve Mallory. He also wrote The Boss, but Ben Falcone will be directing both of them. Look, if they want to work together, I think that's great. And if the movies do well, then that's one thing. Just because they don't entertain me as much as the other ones doesn't mean you shouldn't make them. As long as I would like to see Melissa McCarthy occasionally branch out and do other things with different directors and work with other artists. She's doing that. So you have Life of the Party coming out this August, and then this Oscar season is going to be Can You Ever Forgive Me, which is a very different movie that's her stepping out of her normal wheelhouse, but it looks like she gives a great dramatic performance. So as long as that kind of stuff keeps rolling in, are you okay with her working with Ben Falcone, even though the movies to this date have not been great?
Totally okay with it. Like what I call Supreme Intelligence. I probably won't see that either. But what I am going to see is Can You Ever Forgive Me? Because the trailer for that looked so incredible. Melissa McCarthy is so ultra talented that it's great when she's allowed to just be goofy and crazy. The Heat, Bridesmaids, all those kinds of things. Just Spy. I mean, she's bubbling with personality. Everything she says is funny. You could tell half of it's riffing. That's the kind of Melissa McCarthy that I want to see in comedies. This McCarthy that we're seeing in Can You Ever Forgive Me? It's directed by the gal who directed Diary of a Teenage Girl, which was a fantastic first film. If you haven't seen that, check that out. It's an amazing movie. The trailer for this was just jaw-dropping to me. I've seen the trailer twice so far in theaters, and I'm like, wow, it looks beautifully shot. Storytelling on a high-level mark. It just feels like it's going all over the place based on a true story. The other film that she's doing is it's a Muppet film, but it's a dark film that they've been trying to do for a while. It's called The Happy Time Murders. Now, I know Brian Henson had been trying to make that for like 20 years.
It's not the actual Muppets in it.
Well,
it's not like Kermit and Miss Piggy.
It's Henson. They can't use the Disney Muppets because they sold
right.
that. But it's, for all intents and purposes, Muppets. You might as well call them Muppets, call them whatever the hell you want. But it's people with hands talking with,
Well, those are puppets.
Yeah.
Those aren't. Muppets are specific.
All right, Ellis.
Muppets have names.
All right,
that we've
Ellis.
come to know and love. I don't want my Muppets being in a dark murder
Let
mystery.
me put a P on that. Puppets. So that Ellis doesn't keep crying about it.
I get
It's
nervous.
All right. Yeah, he's getting nervous. I'm not trying to cause lawsuits here on Movie Talk. But yeah, that's another one that I'm excited that she's a part of, that she signed on to it, helped get that money, helped like clench that deal. That's another, it's like, it might even be an R-rated puppet movie.
Thank you.
With her. It's like kind of a Hoskins-y Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but instead of animated characters, it's puppets. So that's another one I'm looking forward to. What's this one that with her husband? It's
Do you
called
consider
Supreme
Yoda a
Intelligence.
Muppet or a puppet?
I'm not going to talk to you anymore. The Supreme Intelligence thing. Look, you know
I
what Tammy
love
did
that
for
he's
me?
calling it Supreme Intelligence.
So whatever it's called.
Superintelligence.
Superintelligence, whatever.
No,
Supreme
because like
Intelligence,
Supreme
yeah, he's like,
Intelligence.
I'm a giant creature. You look it up, Marvel fans. That's what I'd like her to be. Like she should. She could be Mrs. Supreme Intelligence. Have Ben Falcone play the Supreme Intelligence. But anyway, I digress. Tammy, I got some really good apple fritters or whatever. I remember when they had the apple truck showing up around. That's really all I remember from Tammy was like some free food from like some promotional device where like, check out this apple fritter. I was like, that's delicious, Tammy, whatever. So, good luck for her and her husband.
Good luck to her and her husband. Like, I thought the first half of The Boss was really, really funny. Like, I was laughing hysterically.
Really?
And then there's just like a weird thing. There's a cookie fight, or there's like a
The
Girl Scout
brownies
fight
thing, yeah.
It went to such a stupid extreme that I just couldn't forgive the movie after that. And I was done. It's very rare that one scene can just totally. I allowed Harrison Ford to survive a refrigerator bomb. Okay, and yet I
That's the
see that
beginning of
scene.
the movie.
Oh,
Yeah, and I
man.
was like, that's fine. We'll get over it. And this one, I couldn't allow that shark to be jumped. We're gonna save some time for your live Twitter questions at the end of this show. So go ahead and start tweeting us right now at Collider Video and use the hashtag Collider Movie Talk. This Friday we have the Schmodown Free for All is dropping. So make sure you guys check it. It's a record-breaking number of competitors. It's a huge, giant event. It's one of our huge events of the year. Make sure you guys check out the Schmodown Free for All this Friday, April 13th. And we also have a all-new episode of Collider Heroes dropping later on today. Jon Schnepp, what's on tap? Are there any Muppets/puppets?
There will be several puppet discussions that I'll use the M word because Ellis won't be there. And the other M word is going to be there. Markeia is going to be there with me on the show. So
Yeah, and we'll be talking about Muppets.
we're going to be talking about Muppets and
She
stuff.
looked right at me. She literally stared me dead in the eyes and said, Muppets.
That's right. Knives are coming out, but I'll felt-covered little special little Muppety knives for you.
Muppet Babies is one of the best shows. The Muppet Babies Star Wars episode, the best 22 minutes in the history of television. Markeia, where can all the kids check you out before we get to live Twitter questions?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Markeia McCarty. There's a silent E in there, but I'm sure they'll spell it on the screen for you.
All right. We are also going to remind you guys that we have Caption This. It's our Instagram show every Thursday. So how you participate, the fan, is you just comment on our Instagram feed. We post a bunch of images throughout the week. At Collider Video is the Instagram feed. Make sure you're following that. Leave a comment. The best ones could get featured on a new episode of Caption This, hosted by the best in the business, Cody and Cobster.
Woohoo.
So we move on to live Twitter questions. And as we look at these, Terry McGinnis kicks us off. He says, Collider ranked The Dark Knight as the greatest comic book movie, but does The Dark Knight make your top 10 movies of all time? And if not, does another comic book movie sneak into your top 10 movies from any genre?
Wow.
Adjusted for inflation of all time.
It's a good question. It's a hard one to just think right off the top,
Yeah,
like top
for
10
top
movies
10.
of all time.
I don't think that there's a comic
Wow.
book movie in my top 10.
You know,
If I did, it would be Batman Begins. I think that's my favorite comic book movie of all time. The Avengers is up there. Civil War's up there. Black Panther's up there. The Dark Knight's up there. But I think that Batman Begins is as close as it gets. It might crack number 10. But there's a whole lot of Star Wars and Indiana Jones and Jaws and Animal Houses and Monty Python's and the Holy
like
Grail.
Labyrinth is in there. Then you got Miyazaki movies are in there. I mean, I have to do it by genre, not just by like.
I'm not even
top
like
10 of
I'm
all
not a top 10
time.
type person. I hate that kind of shit. So it's like as far as like like look, for me it's like
Sorry, Terry.
Apocalypse Now is up there. I mean, like real movies like Blue Velvet. Like you got Brazil. I mean, there's a whole
Full
lot.
Metal
Just the
Jacket.
B letters. There's a lot of top 10.
But how do we do that with our top
Yeah.
10 and yet we get so excited about these comic book movies? How are they never able to crack our all-time top 10? Are we just constantly leaving theaters disappointed?
No. It's not that. It's that you also have to think about like where you were in your life when you saw a particular thing. Like somebody might watch Labyrinth now, and let's say they're like 35, 38, and they'll watch Labyrinth and they'll be like, what the crap is she talking about? This is a weird thing, and Bowie's got tight pants and his, the cup, there's a crotch thing going
Not
on
a
there.
lot to the
And
imagination.
Right.
And then, but you have to imagine like me seeing it, and I was like 8, I think I was 8 or 9. It was like this mystical world where they
Sure.
could take my little brother away, but then I could also be a hero because I'd have to go and save him. So it all depends on where you are in life. Like Warriors of the Wind by Miyazaki. I could be a princess. I could save the world from a bunch of bugs just by being authentically me. It all depends on where it is in life. And with all of these, superhero movies, they've only really hit us in the past 10 years.
Right.
We're talking 2008 to now. And then you can go further back. You can do Blade and,
single off like one every 3
know.
years? That was like the
Exactly.
desert of superhero movies.
I mean, there's a lot of life experience that's had, and it's true that for me, it's true that things hit me a lot harder when I was a kid and when I was, going through adolescence and teenager than it is right now. I very much appreciate it, but top 10 of all time, I have to put it in a superhero genre.
Or I could put it in an age bracket, like what you were just saying. Like for me, like top 10 of all time when I was 11, it would be like Superman 2, Empire Strikes Back. I mean, literally, like it would just be like all the things with lasers, superheroes, or explosions. So I mean, look, Dark Knight is an incredible movie.
It's very, very good.
It's a really amazing film. I would put it in my top 100 easily. Would it broach the top 30? Couldn't tell you without actually writing stuff down. It's a very complicated question. Terry McGinnis, Batman Beyond of the future. Stop with these questions.
Bill Clay, I get the Die Hard reference, asked the last question of the day, and he says, what's your preferred way to watch a movie? Is it at home? Is it 2D in the theater, 3D, IMAX, the dine-in theaters, or D-Box?
Wow.
D-Box is fun. It's a little too intense for my taste. Ideally, I would not have to wear 3D glasses or any sort of headgear to enjoy a movie. So I'm going to say I like a good IMAX. Can I be in the theater by myself? Because I love the theater experience. I just don't want to be around other people. So I like the IMAX. You get to the IMAX theater early. You sit all the way up in the back with like the last row. So that way, if you happen to be in a theater where other people are around, they're not kicking the back of your chair because you're the last row. Get the best view of everything, the stadium seating. That's what I'll take. IMAX non-3D. What say you?
Check it. So I saw Ready Player One in exactly that same situation, back row, IMAX, but the idiots in the theater forgot to turn off the IMAX logo for the first 20 minutes of the movie.
Yikes.
Like everyone in the theater got a free ticket, but it kind of ruined a little bit of the experience
I
of
had
it.
the same thing happen with an IMAX-ish. It wasn't a traditional IMAX theater. It was like an IMAX, hey, we like IMAX, so it's
Right.
kind of like an IMAX. And the speakers weren't full blast. They were like
Right.
40%. So when Jump comes on, it just sounded like it was coming out of a Walkman
Yeah,
speaker.
and
Y'all
the
go to
thing
the
is-
same theater?
I don't
Is that
know.
what
No,
this?
These are the actual lights where it says IMAX. So you're literally watching a movie with like two like IMAX lights next to you. And Ready Player One is a movie you don't really have a minute to leave the theater, especially the first
right.
20
Yeah.
minutes where you're like, things are just happening at a breakneck speed. And so I was just slowly bubbling with rage. And then I saw one person get up. I was like, they better be going to talk to the idiot because they don't want me to
see
get
the
up.
one person go.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
like, oh, they got this
No.
handled.
And then it was
Yeah.
like 3 people. And then at that time, it's like, if I got out there, man, I would feel bad for the managers and the ushers because I'd be a screaming monster, I'd be like, what kind of incompetent, just like horrifying. I almost had to go off on a dude who was like popping his phone at a quiet place. Luckily, he turned it off after the first 5 minutes because literally I was about to lean in on him and be like, yo, like yell in his ear.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, theater etiquette is really important. You're not in your living room, idiot. You know? So, sorry, what was the question again?
Yeah, I even forgot the
uh,
question. I'm just thinking of like
IMAX,
Banshee
right, I'm
Schnepp
getting-
going after some theater manager.
I'm getting all worked up. Well, IMAX
What is your favorite way to positively enjoy
Check it out. Positively,
Oh.
I saw the Book of Eli in D-Box, where it's like when he was like shooting off a bow, it was like the thing was moving. I was like, yo, it's an extra $4 to be like jostled around every time an explosion happens, or if the camera's panning, the thing kind of moves. I was like, not really for me. I was gonna try Jumanji with all the mists and the flavor blast. They have some, I don't even know what the hell it's called. If it's still D-Box, it's like, get in a seat, move around, things hit you, lightning jolts and all this other crazy shit. But they were like, it's not working. I was like, the one time you're like, yo, I'm ready to pop down the extra $10 for this stupid chair. Yeah, all of them are broken. Good job. I'll just see the movie regular. So for me, regular films is the best way to see a movie. I don't need jolted chairs, F-box, whatever the hell it's called, 3D glass. Could care less about it. If a movie's a movie, a great case in point, I saw Terminator 2, the re-release of it this last year, but Cameron had redone it completely in 3D, and you would never know that he didn't think about filming it in 3D when he shot it like over 20 years ago.
Wow.
Nice.
Because it's so well composed. The way that man directs, he thinks in 3D. Like, you have multi-planing shots. Everything about it, without the technology of 3D, is already a 3D film. That's the way filmmakers and cinematographers and people who storyboard things should be thinking about the theatrical experience. So whether you see it in 3D or not, you're seeing a true theatrical experience.
Yeah, but even if they made it for 3D, I'm too lazy to wear the glasses. So, Markeia, I hope your answer is 3D D-Box. What's your favorite way to watch a movie?
It's not. It's not, though. Sorry. I have to be passionate about the movie, or the movie has to want that occasion. Like maybe Pacific Rim Uprising would be a D-Box kind of a movie. I have some friends that saw it that way, and they're like, oh, it was spectacular. I'd be like, great. I saw it regular. So, maybe that was on me then. But no, I'm usually a regular person if I feel, I usually go see movies that I enjoy 2 to 4 times, depending. I really should movie pass. I really should. But with that, I'll do regular screening if I feel somewhat passionate, IMAX, and then if I'm like, oh, I must see it this way, like I did with Ready Player One, IMAX 3D.
Somebody else tweeted just now, hey, I just noticed Mark picks the same guy's tweet every day on Collider Movie Talk. Biased much? No, I'm not biased, but I appreciate the Terry McGinnises and the Bill Clays of the world, because they actually tweet good questions and not just complaints about how I'm picking somebody else's question. You haven't tweeted. We literally not tweeted any question. You just noticed I picked the same questions. Think of a question, tweet it, and turn your damn phone off if you're seeing A Quiet Place.
Yeah.
Yes.
Namaste. Thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of Collider Movie Talk. For Markeia McCarty, Jon Schnepp, I am Mark Ellis. See you guys in Valparaiso, Indiana on Friday, and at the Columbus Funny Bone on Saturday, and tomorrow for a brand new Collider Movie Talk. Hey everybody, Mark Ellis here. Thanks for watching this episode of Collider Movie Talk. You want to watch more? Then click up here, or you can click right here for more great content from Collider. And if you haven't subscribed to Collider Video, do so right now and share this vid with your friends. Thanks for watching.